and it is a reward in itself. At the same time, we recognize that there are some real skills and capacities that you develop as students. And I think we all expect that you should be able to go forward and do something really interesting and meaningful with this degree and with those skills. And there are interesting pathways forward and rewarding pathways, but they're not always obvious. They're not always easy to find. And you're going to get some concrete pathways, next steps possibly presented here. But I think more importantly, it's an opportunity to have your creativity, your ideas, maybe a little bit of enthusiasm generated about the variety of things that might be out there. And maybe this is a good time to really start thinking about what an English degree can really become in the next steps. And I hope you come out of this inspired and with new ideas and new thoughts. And that's really all I have to say. And with that, I look forward to a very rich discussion. I'm going to turn off my camera and recede into the background and just listen to what everybody has to say. So thank you to everybody who came, particularly our presenters. Thank you.
Well, thanks so much, Brent. I really appreciate that. So it's my pleasure as acting undergraduate chair to moderate this Zoom meeting. And to start, we should note that our department's vision is to be a place where many peoples come together to engage in mutually respectful relations and dialogues. We acknowledge that the land on which and through which we gather is Treaty 6 territory and traditional Métis homeland. And we acknowledge the diverse Indigenous peoples whose footsteps have marked this territory for centuries. We've had the pleasure of hosting, or rather we have the pleasure of hosting 4 different presentations today. Each will be about 15 minutes long, followed by 5 to 10 minutes of questions. We ask that you enter your questions into the chat function, and I can make sure that those questions are raised for the presenters. When the talks begin, as Diana has already mentioned in the chat function, you'll likely want to use speaker view, which is accessible in the upper right-hand corner of your Zoom screen. I'll just note that this event is being recorded, but while it's being recorded, the gallery view and attendees will not be appearing in any posted recording. Only the speakers who have agreed to be recorded will be shown. So Career Options is an annual event in the Department of English, and our aim, as Professor Nelson has indicated, is to provide a sense of how an English BA doesn't necessarily correspond to one job, but rather helps you develop skills applicable to so many careers. In addition to teaching and law and journalism and publishing, English students have gone on to positions as financial advisors, heads of business associations, coordinators at nonprofit literary organizations, research facilitators, website designers, communication experts, the list goes on. Professor James Cavan will be talking about the department's career internship course, which enables students to try out some different jobs. And a current intern with the University of Communications, Angelica Breland, will also be discussing her experiences. Roberta Braid from the Student Employment and Career Center will be coming in, joining us to offer a broader vision of career planning. Brent, I think you need to mute. And Professor Murray will end off our session discussing the potential of graduate studies. In most fields, a master's degree means expanded opportunities. We'll start though with a presentation by one of our alumni, Jess Claassen-Wright, who will be sharing her perspectives on how she's connecting the dots between her coursework, work on campus, current career. I'll just do a brief introduction before handing it over. Jess Claassen-Wright graduated with an English honors degree in 2017. She's become a highly regarded professional, a freelance editor who, as she indicates on her website, focuses on back-of-book indexes for academic and trade books. This past year, she received the Purple Pen Award for the Best New Indexer from the Institute of Certified Indexers. It's my very real pleasure to welcome Jess Claassen-Wright to today's event. Jess, I'll turn it over to you.
There we go. Sorry, I was stuck on mute there, but it's off now. Thanks so much, Anne, for that introduction. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes,
Okay,
we can hear
great.
you well, Jess.
Wonderful. Okay, I'm just going to share my screen. Okay, so as Anne said, I graduated from the department in 2017. And now I work full time as an indexer and editor. It's freelance work. So in this presentation, I'll tell you first about the work that I do and how I came to do that work. And then I'll talk a little bit as I can about the skills that you can gain from an English degree and how you can apply those in the real world. But I'll still connect it to examples from my own experience. So the work that I do is primarily indexing, but I also do copy editing, proofreading, and footnote and bibliographic formatting. So as Anne mentioned, this is primarily for academic books, but I also do some trade books. So I work contract work for academic presses and then some nonprofit presses, independent presses in both Canada and the States. And part of this as well is that as a freelancer, I have to manage my business. So I manage my website, I do my own marketing, I do my own client communications and outreach and professional development, and then I also manage my own finances. So I don't know how many of you know about indexing as a profession. So I'll tell you a little bit about what an indexer does. Um, what I do is I read the document, so usually a full-length books. I analyze it. I select all of the terms that I want to show up in the index, and then I list them alphabetically and hierarchically. So it's a process of reading the text, analyzing it, and then I have to edit through my work after the fact. So I'll show you a small sample of one of the indexes that I've worked on. Hopefully you can see it there. But part of the job that's great is I get to read all sorts of books that I never would have chosen to read otherwise. So just in the next couple months, I'm working currently on a book on sex magic and Kabbalah. And I will next be working on a book on dog training. So it's a switch, and that happens frequently where I have projects on the go on a lot of different topics. Okay, so I'll tell you now how I found indexing as a career. It does seem like it was a little bit by chance, but yeah, not fully. So I started out probably the beginning was that I was a student journalist at the Sheaf, and many of the skills that you get from working at the Sheaf work in conjunction with what you will gain from your English degree, particularly in marketing and publishing outside of the academic field. Um, so I knew, though, working at the newspaper, that I wasn't an amazing journalist, but that I was really good at editing and project management. So after I finished there, I looked around for programs to kind of complement my English degree in editing. So I signed up for the certificate program from Simon Fraser University, which is an online program specifically for freelance editors, but it also has a indexing elective course. Another really good program for editors and publishing is at Ryerson, and I think that that program has an internship, which is pretty cool. And I believe you can do it either online or in person. So anyhow, I ended up taking this indexing elective course. It was a lot of fun, and I also realized that as a freelancer, it would probably be more feasible for me to get work as an indexer, because many presses have in-house editors, but they generally very rarely have in-house indexers. So all of that has to be contracted out. Okay, so now I'll tell you a little bit about the skills from an English degree and the real world application of those skills, but I'll still talk about my experience and from the publishing industry perspective, because that's what I do. All right. So the first two that I'm sure you know already are editing skills, writing skills, and communication skills. And these can help you with marketing, with client outreach, with applying for jobs and contracts, and with being professional and clear in your emails and really getting your point across. Something that's super important with clients is making sure that everything is upfront. They know exactly what they're going to be getting for the money that they're paying you, and all of the kind of stipulations of the contract are laid out ahead of time. So those skills are really important. The next two, maybe not good for a huge variety of careers, but really important in the publishing and indexing and the editing community, is understanding citation and bibliographic formatting, and also understanding copyright and sourcing rules. So this is something particularly that I have to look for as a copy editor to make sure things are sourced correctly. Okay, the next two are research skills and self-guided learning and development. So as a freelancer, there's no boss that is guiding your development in your workplace. This is something that you have to take charge of yourself. So these skills that you gain as an English student will help you do this self-guided learning, research learning opportunities, articles about what you're wanting to learn. So I use this to look at other people's indexes, look at the websites of other professionals, and integrate what I learn into my own work. Another thing that's great about having been an English student is I understand the academic writing process, and I had some sense already of the publishing process. So this helps understand the clients, because sometimes I work for individual authors, individual academics. So I understand what kind of work they're doing, what goes into their work. But I also understand the motivations of the press, the process of the press, and the timeline that things need to be done in to get published. All right. Having an English degree also gives you diverse perspectives, an understanding of diverse life paths. So you read a huge variety of literature when you're in an English degree, and you also meet loads of different students and professors from different backgrounds. And this will help you anywhere, but to talk with clients and colleagues, and to also, as an indexer, understand the viewpoints of people who are going to be reading your book and decide what they might want to see in that book and pull it out of the text so that you can put it in the index and that information is more readily available to the audience of the book. Okay, the next piece is critical reasoning and interpretation, which is super important in indexing because that's basically the majority of what I do is read and analyze the text. This is something I'll also return to in a later slide. So I've talked about applying these to my life, but many of them can work for a communications job or all sorts of career paths outside of communication and publishing as well. All right, so I'll give two main tips that are important when you are moving forward as a freelancer. The first is, as I mentioned, taking charge of your own learning and professional development. So actively learn new skills, improve the skills that you already know, and monitor your progress so that you can improve. So one of the things that I recognize is that I'm very slow at editing my indexes. So this is something I'm actively trying to learn about and practice so that I get better, so that I can spend less time editing my indexes and make more money in the long run. Another thing that's important about this is if you have a diverse skill set, you can be more equipped to take on opportunities when they come to you. So, for example, I might practice indexing cookbooks without actually having a contract. But if I already know how to do this and I've practiced it, I can take contracts on when they come my way on cookbooks, just an example. Okay, another really important thing in the freelancing world is that you are networking and seeking out community and resources. So part of the reason that I got early jobs was because I had done this networking. I had relationships with professors at the university, and they were willing to give me work from their publications. Relationships with professors are super important, regardless of your career goals, as I'm sure you know, but I'll give you another concrete example of why networking is really important. So I joined the Indexing Society of Canada before I even had any work as an indexer, and this gave me a really great base for community. The ISC helps with marketing. They have a place where I can put a listing online so that potential clients can find me. It also gives you colleagues, and they get to know you. They can recommend your work. They can support you. People that you can reach out to if you run into problems in your work and you're not sure what to do. They can give you advice because they've had lots of experience with that kind of work. Another thing is that you actually get work opportunities from being part of a community like this, because if colleagues know your work, they can pass on contracts that they can't take to you. Sometimes you can do subcontracting for other freelancers. So yeah, work opportunities. And another piece is that these kinds of societies offer resources for development. So workshops, conferences, mentorship programs, access to journals and articles about your topic. So these are really great resources. And here's a list of other societies in, I think, mostly Canada. People of Color in Publishing is an American group. But yeah, so these are other options for folks who are in freelancing, mostly in Canada. Okay, so now I'll give you two more tips that I think are maybe more important for me, especially. I hope that these are things that you know already, but when I was a student at university, I didn't. And I have depression as part of a long-term reality for me. So this is more personal advice. One thing that's really important is your mental health and physical well-being. We're part of this huge culture of overwork, and this is true in the academic setting as well. We're told we have to go all the time, we need to get good grades, we need to make money, we have to network and diversify and find this meaningful, fulfilling career. But when you take time for self-care, it's not wasting time. Another thing is that the critical reasoning aspect is something that you learn as an English student when you're working with texts, is also something you can use to examine your own life and goals. So you can ask yourself, what do I actually want? What's going to make me happy? What's a career or a job that I can do that will give me time to spend with people and read and volunteer, but also make money enough to live on? And this was one of my initial motivations for looking at freelancing, because it gives me a lot of freedom over my schedule. And this kind of critical reasoning is something that you have literary guides for. So we examine and try to understand literature as English students, but it also helps us examine and understand ourselves. So I'll share with you an important literary guide for me in the last year, which has been a book called Pleasure Activism, which is gathered and written by Adrienne Marie Brown. There's an early part in this book where Brown works with a previous source written by Audre Lorde. So I'll just read out Brown's statement, which kind of is, in her words, reforms what Lorde is talking about in her article. So Brown says, "What would I be doing with my time and energy if I made decisions based on a feeling of deep, erotic, orgasmic yes?" And I know that might be a little bit intense coming from a presenter who you don't ever know, but these were important words for me to think about when I, not so much making decisions about my freelancing career, but when thinking about how I wanted to spend my time and what would allow me to do that. I want to say, though, don't take this kind of questioning as another aspect of overwork culture. This kind of full feeling that Lorde and Brown talk about is not something that you must find to be a whole human. Having fulfilling work, even if it's not like the most amazing, but it still gives you time for joy, that's really worthwhile also. Okay, that's the end of my presentation. So I want to thank you so much for listening to me talk a little bit. And I hope that some of the points that I've talked about have been useful. I'll put my email up here again so that you can see it. You can feel free to contact me about anything you like. I'm totally happy to respond to any questions via email. And I'm here to answer questions now, I believe, for about 5 to 10 minutes.
Thank you so much, Jess. That's great. And after you stop sharing your screen, maybe we can go into a question period. If there are questions for Jess, I've got a couple myself, but please type them into the chat function, which you can locate at the bottom of the bottom towards the middle left of the Zoom screen. I just want to talk about how much insight you brought into examining critical life goals, thinking about how a job can fit into that. I think for me, one of the motivators of thinking about jobs and thinking about how I would be able to use my degree, it's often fear, where if I don't do something, something bad is going to happen. How did you find you overcame that? How did you kind of start to embrace, well, instead of being motivated by fear, being motivated more by positive things and by a creative approach?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not sure that I have fully articulated answer. I think the big thing for me is recognizing that I have time. I don't have to figure things out right away. And I can let that kind of fear be there, but I can also take time to think about what it is that I want to do, and I can do other things while I'm figuring that out. It doesn't all have to happen right now. So, and I think as well, recognizing that I can make a wrong choice, and that's not going to be the end of things. You know, you can work on a goal for some time, and it's perfectly fine to put time into that goal and then decide, you know what, this isn't working. I'm going to focus on some other goals and put that goal aside, and that is totally fine.
That's wonderful. Great. There's a question in the chat function. It's from Jenna Miller. Hi, Jess. Thank you for your presentation. How long did the editing training certificate from SFU take you? Is the program offered online? And I'm just going to do a follow-up question too. Is the Ryerson program offered online?
Yeah, so the SFU program, from what I understand, is completely online, and it was online before pandemic life. The Ryerson program is online as well, but I believe some point they were offering in-person classes, but there's online options for that. The SFU program, I think, has it's a period of 5 years, I think, that you can take to complete the program. So it's really at your own pace. But a lot of the courses are short. They're like 3 to 5 weeks or something. So you can really do it at your own pace.
Excellent, thank you. Other questions are welcome here. I think a question that I might have is how much training really does come after an initial degree. When you were approaching the indexing society, for example, or other job opportunities, I'm wondering, did you find that you really needed that extra layer, that certificate, just a quick kind of focusing, but that it really allowed you to draw out the skills that you had developed?
Yeah, I would say that I would recommend some extra training, whether that's like official training or self-learning. But when you're applying for contracts, it is really helpful to be able to tell potential clients, look, I've done specific training on this thing that I'm applying to do for you. So I have the skill set. But it doesn't necessarily need to be a full certificate in order to do that. So I actually have not completed the certificate. I just took courses that that I knew I was going to need to begin with, and it's possible that I'll finish the certificate at some point. But I'm doing totally fine with just those courses that I did take. And another reason for doing a little bit of extra training is it will give you confidence in your work. You'll know, like, I know how to do this. I have the skills, so I'm equipped.
And that gives you flexibility too, so that you can adapt those skills further. Reflecting back, maybe, unless there are other questions, reflecting back, what's one thing that you've really taken away since 2017 when you graduated to now, when you reflect on your experiences, when you reflect on what you've learned, but not in terms of formal education, but what's the most important thing that you feel that you've learned through experience? What's the thing that you would take away from those years?
Um, yeah, I think that I mean, part of what I'm not sure I have a new answer to that question. Um, I think that I've done a lot of work in kind of reconciling my internal mental health life with my work life and my professional life, and trying to find balance in those. And it's an ongoing process. Uh, yeah,
I
so
think
that's
the
been my
idea
big focus since graduating.
that idea that it is an ongoing process, that there's not one job, one position, or one answer is so useful. Kathleen, James Cavan has another question for you. How many hours a day do you normally work on average, or do you count? This is, I guess, really does reflect the work-life balance issue too.
Yeah, so I generally work 5 days a week. I try to schedule off, and this is something that you have to do as for yourself as a freelancer. And there's nobody telling you to come into work or not come into work. So yeah, I work for 3 days, and then I take a day off, and then I work and take a day off. And my brain usually cannot do more indexing than 6 hours a day. It's just impossible. After that point, I start to not really understand anything that I'm reading. I'd say that usually I work more often, about 3 to 4 hours a day, fully on indexing. But I also have other projects that I'm doing in a workday.
Well, thank you. Well, thanks so much, Jess. I'm not seeing any other questions, and it's been wonderful to have you talk with us. Thank you so much again.
Yeah, no problem. And like I said, if anybody hasn't put questions in the chat box but has a question that comes up later on, super feel free to email me, and I'm happy to chat with you through email.
Thank you. We'll move to our next speakers then. Our next presenters will be discussing English 496, the career internship course. Professor Kathleen James Cavan is leading this learning opportunity, and today she's accompanied by Angelica Breland, who will be sharing her experiences of the course, the internship position that it involves, and how they're both finding it. So I'll pass it on over to you, Kathleen. And I think you're starting to share your screen already.
Yes, I am.
Thank
Sorry,
you.
a bit premature there.
Well, it's ideal. Thanks.
There we go. All right. Well, welcome everyone, and thank you, Jess. That was fascinating to learn about your indexing career. I'm here to talk about English 496, which many of you have probably seen in the course outline booklets or online under the undergraduate course options. And it is an unusual course, is as a course that introduces students to potential careers. So my topic is, so what can you do with an English degree, and why should you take this course? Here are some of the things that you'll learn in the course in English 496. And I should say that I'm joined by Angelica, who I will ask, who currently attending, is part of the course. And I better start my video because you can't see me. There we go. That's nicer. And she'll give some give you an idea of what it's like to be a student in the course. So throughout the course, you will learn how to write and reflect critically on experience. One of the things that Jess spoke of as being a really important part of your learning as an English student, and in this course, this is one of the intentional purposes of the course. You are already good, we're critical thinkers about text, and we turn your experience into a text, that is your experience of the internship, of the placement. You will learn how to develop your own learning goals. You will learn about the culture of an organization and how to understand it. But most important, I think, you will discern a variety of career paths open to someone with an English degree. Although you, if you take the course, would do one placement, you will, because we come together as a group every 2 weeks, you will hear about the experiences of other students. And so it will be, in fact, a learning about other placements beyond your own course. So what are the possible placements that you can take? You can work in communications at the university or outside the university. In specifically arts organizations, we have several partnerships with our arts organizations and partnerships with various communications organizations in the university. You can work with a literacy organization such as Frontier College or the Literacy Network of Saskatchewan, or you can work with writers, and that is help to teach creative writing to people who live at the Sherbrooke Community Center or who are inmates at the Correctional Center. Currently, of course, because of COVID, we don't have placements in those two places, but I'm sure that will change shortly. So how does the course work? You will be speaking with the chair of the undergraduate program committee to talk about your choices for your next year for your honors seminars. And once you've mentioned that to Professor Martin, then you contact me about your interests in English 496, if 496 is one of your choices, and I hope it will be. And then I'll have a chat with you online or perhaps on Zoom, and then I'll send you a list of the possible placements that will be available. You get to make 3 choices. Send me your resume as well at the same time, and then I'll attempt to make a match. May not be your top choice, it may be your second or third, or I might choose something that you weren't expecting based on your experience and what I've gleaned from our conversation. Now, just to remind you, this course begins in January and it's held every January to April. So it's always term 2. And of course, in order to make a choice on this, you have to know that you've got room in your courses and room in your degree for a course like this, which does not connect to any of our categories in the English program, but it is obviously an English course, and it contributes to your degree. So I'm going to stop sharing now and invite Angelica, if you join me.
Yeah, of course.
Right.
So
You'll
I
have to put your camera on if you can, if you don't mind.
It is on, is it not?
Oh, okay. I'm just seeing me. That's okay.
It's not on, Angelica. Can you put your camera on?
Oh, is it on now?
Hmm.
It's still not working?
No.
Oh, that is strange. I can see myself. Huh.
And you've clicked on the bottom thing where it says stop video or start video.
Hmm.
Oh. Well, we'll just carry on and maybe you'll look. Oh, there you are.
Oh, okay.
Great.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Okay.
I thought it was on this whole time.
So you were one of those people who chose to take this course. I'm curious to know what attracted you to the course.
Yeah, so I had a lot of nerves, still have some, about entering the real world after graduation. I've never been able to get a job related to what I'm studying, and I felt like that was really going to put me at a disadvantage once I graduated. This seemed like a really great opportunity to gain professional experience, but with an emphasis on education. So it takes a lot of the pressure off from just walking into a professional environment and for me personally, not knowing at all what I'm doing. So I get a lot of mentorship through this, and it just makes it a lot less pressure.
Hmm. Okay, so that was your motivation. Yeah,
Mhm.
great. So tell us a little bit about your placement. What's the work like? Can you describe something you're working on right now?
Sure. So I'm with USAS Communications, emphasizing on internal communications. So focus on faculty and staff related information rather than information going out towards students or the public. This will hopefully change for anyone taking the class next year, but I work remotely. So I
Mm,
essentially just log on to Microsoft Teams for my shifts and do my work during that time. My supervisor will give me assignments to work on. Sometimes her colleagues will approach me as well if they have something that they think I might be able to help with. I've been working on staff newsletters, writing articles, conducting interviews, and some pitching of my own ideas as well, which has been really fun.
mm, that's great.
Um, yeah, I've been working on a few different articles right now, but my biggest project on the go is a communications plan. So, someone at the university has a university related project that they want people to know about. So, we need to plan out the key messages, interview the person or people involved, write an article, create some social media posts. It's sort of an all encompassing project that
Mm,
allows me to develop a lot of skills, and it's not particularly difficult, but it does take some time, and it is new to me. I have my own social media accounts, of course, but, like, conducting interviews, things like that is something that's new to me, and working with branding as well. It's also gonna look really great on my portfolio once I graduate, so I'm super excited about that.
great. Wow. So your work is showing up already. People can see it, right? Within the
Yeah,
university. Yeah, that's
yeah,
very cool.
as soon as my first article went up, I immediately Googled my name to see if it would show up.
So I'm wondering if taking this course is giving you a new perspective on other classes that you're taking, or how it relates to the rest of your degree.
Yeah, it's definitely made me reconsider why I'm doing what I'm doing and sort of puts things in perspective and also reflectively as well. I'm not doing honors, so I'm mostly just finishing up a minor this year. But looking back at my English courses, it's more so helped me to look back and see things like how is this class helping me prepare me for what I want to do in my life rather than how is this class going to help me complete my degree requirements. So
Mm,
it's definitely a different mindset. And I'm able to go back and like, oh, this was a good example of how I learned this and how I can apply similar skills to projects that I'm actually working on.
So you learn about learning as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah. And how much time do you put into this work, into this course per week on average, do you think?
On average, I guess it's about 7 hours. We only have lectures every other week. So when we don't have lectures, I'm working 6 hours a week over 2 shifts. And that can vary depending on your placements. I know some of my classmates have a bit of a different schedule, but it's something that you can work out with your supervisor as well. So it makes it pretty easy to focus on your internship and make sure you're able to do that kind of without the stress, but still having time to reconvene with your classmates, find out what they're doing, and also encouraging you to reevaluate what you're looking to get out of this experience.
So there's flexibility in terms of managing your coursework and the other courses plus this one. And it's not in addition to, I mean, it's part of your normal load, but you can work out work times with your placement.
Yeah, definitely. I know for me so far, I haven't had any conflicts, but I know some of my classmates have been able to ask their supervisors to change their shifts or maybe take a shift off just because they had due dates coming up and the like. And they're all super understanding. We're only doing this because we are students and they know that. They know what it was like.
Mhm. Yeah. So my last question has to do with this experience and how it might have helped you shape some future plans, or think about your future plans, either positively or negatively.
So when I signed up for the class, I actually had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. And this definitely does sort of force me to think about what I'm going to do post graduation, which can be scary and stressful. And I understand the reluctance that can come with that. I felt some of that too. But it is necessary. You're going to have to do it eventually. And this is a good way to sort of incorporate it gradually and with a lot of guidance. Like you have other people going through this with you, your
Mhm.
mentorship is super helpful. Um, yeah, in between the time that I registered for the class and the class actually starting, I did end up deciding on communications, and
Mm.
I applied to Summit Fraser University, like Jess, and I'm doing a public relations certificate in the summer after I graduate.
Oh,
So
great.
yeah, this internship has still allowed me to connect with people in the communications team on campus, as well as people under the broader umbrella of university relations. And almost everyone I've met has done an English degree, whether at the U of S or elsewhere. And this all of them have such a different positions. They all have different responsibilities, different things they focus on. So it's really opened me up to a lot of the possibilities and some of the nuances within just communications as a field, as well as giving me some of the pros and cons of different positions and also what it takes to get there. People are pretty candid with me because I'm not an employee and they know that I need to know helpful information, which has been really nice. And because there is a variety of places you can do your placement, talking with my classmates, I've learned about what it's like to work at non government organizations or nonprofits, which has been really insightful as well.
Great. Thank you very much, Angelica. Thanks for agreeing to talk with me about this.
Yeah, of course.
So, and we've concluded our presentation, and we'd be delighted to take questions for Angelica or for me or for both of us.
Well, as Brent notes, thank you both. English 496 is an excellent first step. I'll just maybe while we're waiting for other people who might want to put in comments or questions in the chat function, I'll just mention that it's available to honor students to four-year BAs, and it does fulfill a 400 level requirement, not a category course, but still 3 credit units of English that are necessary for those 2 degrees for sure. You can certainly talk with me about it, and we'd be happy to set you up with English 496 for this upcoming year. It should be great, and it's certainly a kind of hands-on course, real-world course that can still operate online, obviously. I was wondering, Angelica, when you're doing those communications jobs, when you're doing the stuff that you're doing, I haven't done it. How much is it like or unlike writing essays?
We've talked about this quite a lot actually, and when I've been meeting with my classmates, and it's so different. It's definitely one of the biggest challenges that we've all had was adjusting and sort of forcing ourselves to write differently because we're so used to writing academically for a professor, developing a thesis statement, developing your argument, doing a ton of research, and that's just not at all what you're doing. It will depend a little bit where you go and what's asked for you. But like, I'm writing for staff and faculty. They're getting, like, short snippets of information, just the highlights, and so it's taken a lot to get used to it, and I think it's something that you underestimate how difficult it's gonna be because it's just writing, right? But you do really have to kind of step back and, learn how to not complicate things so much.
Patrick in the chat function says, "This sounds fantastic. Thank you for sharing this with us. I'm in a similar space of not knowing what I want to do with my degree, and this sounds like a good solution." It's always such a positive experience. And I was interested when you were talking about learning from the other people in the course and how they have different experiences that you can also learn from. Sometimes you also learn that, oh no, that's not quite what I'm after, but wow, that nonprofit sounds really good. So Katie Reed, thank you both for the information. You mentioned that taking the course requires permission through the undergrad chair. Are there any other prerequisites requirements that we should know about? I think from the position of the undergrad chair, I believe that you need a 300 level in order to go into a 400 level course, but I can check on that for you, Katie. But I think that's the case. So
Mhm.
if you've done some coursework already and then you've gotten that kind of familiarity with the type of writing that's involved in experiential learning too, then you can certainly approach me for permission. Kathleen, is that sounding about right to you?
Yes, absolutely right. It isn't limited to all students. Students in the 4-year program. It does tend to be something that students close to the end of their coursework find easier to do. I mean, in this, for exactly the reason you mentioned, just that you're familiar with a variety of kinds of writing that you're able then to translate it into a new situation, as Angelica describes.
Nice. What a great question though, Katie, and great
Mhm.
perspective, Patrick.
Yeah.
Well, anything else that Kathleen, what would you say is the most rewarding thing about leading the course? What do you get out of this? What is it that you're excited by?
Oh, I just love watching people do their interesting projects. And the other thing that I get to do at the end of the course is to read their final papers. And I didn't mention this in my description, but the course is both experiential and there's an academic portion to it. And students create a final project, which is a piece of writing that is both reflective of what they've done, but also investigates a question, an academic question that has been sparked by their experience. And so I've read everything from why you should put a journal online when journals weren't online. This is back in the olden days, and up to questions about why investigating why arts organizations are so poorly funded. Why can we not pay for art? What is it so there's lots of philosophical questions as well that arise in the act, the work that people are doing. So, but I also love watching the development of students in their placements as they become expert in the work that they're doing. And then I get to read what they write too when it comes to the public writing. Like Angelica's pieces or yeah.
Yeah,
Anyway,
that's
it's great fun.
seeing that development, seeing people like really applying their work and learning different things, moving into new directions. How rewarding. Thank you both. Thank you,
Mhm.
Kathleen. Thank you, Angelica. What a great dialogue that was.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
I'll move on now then. We're very lucky to have Roberta Braid here from the Student Employment and Careers Center. Um, Roberta is going to be introducing some other perspectives, larger perspectives on the employment search more generally. So taking it from what the department offers to taking it to what the university offers, and not just at this point in time, but for years after you've graduated. Roberta, can I turn it over to you?
Yes. Thanks, Anne. Can everyone see me and hear me? Hey, perfect. Well, I'm going to share my screen. And hopefully everyone can see this. All right, so maybe Anne, because I can't see anyone right now, but maybe if you can just tell me if you're seeing the screen here.
I'm not able to see the screen yet, Roberta.
Okay.
There you go. Now it's up.
Perfect.
Thanks so much. Oh, this looks good.
All right. Okay. So I'm going to be building on what Kathleen and Angelica had just spoke to with what you can do with a degree in English. So I always like to start these presentations off with a little bit of a self-assessment, some self-awareness, and looking at the career clarity scale. So I want all of you just to take a moment to think of, how confident am I with my career direction and my next steps? So really thinking of, 1 being maybe the least confident, 10 being 100% confident, where you might fall on that career clarity scale. And then thinking about, if I'm say a 5, what makes that a 5 and not lower? So what steps have I already taken that have gained my confidence in this area? And then just thinking about what is the unknown or missing information right now? So what might take this from say a 5 to a 6? So what might that look like? And just to kind of keep that in your head as we go through this presentation today. So always thinking about the first step in career exploration with any degree is really looking at self-awareness. So looking at kind of these 8 different pies in the wheel, looking at the internal and external factors. So if we look at the internal factors, that includes things like interest. So what am I really passionate about? What am I drawn to? What am I authentically connected with? Looking at the world, what kinds of problems do I want to solve in the world? And are there maybe some careers in there that could align with those? Looking at and being aware of my personality preferences. So for example, do I have an introversion or an extroversion preference? And how does that relate with different career roles? What does that look like? So making sure you have an awareness of those personality traits and what that also looks like in the workplace. Thinking about your strengths and your skill set. So what am I innately good at? What comes natural to me? How do I want to build on this? What could that potentially look like in different roles that I could do? And looking at values. So what's really important to me? What do I need to feel confident in different work roles? Versus maybe what are some nice to haves, but what are those core things that I would really need to feel satisfied and confident? And then if we flip it to the external factors, that's looking at things kind of outside of ourselves. So looking at our significant others when we're making things like career decisions, who is this affecting? Who might I need to talk to? Who are my supports? Who are the people that I can lean on when I'm looking at making some of these decisions? Looking at work-life experiences. So that also includes things like volunteer experiences. What have I learned about myself through these roles? What do I like? What don't I like? What surprised me? How did I build on these experiences, or how could I build on these? What could this look like in the future? Looking at academic experiences. So what courses am I really enjoying? Why am I enjoying them? Reflecting on that, thinking about what you're actually connecting to within those, and how that could relate again to different career possibilities. And career possibilities, exploring different options, looking at, what potentially you could build on with your degree. And that's really what we're going to be looking at today, and some resources for that. So always do the self-assessment first. Having that personal checklist is going to be really helpful when you're looking at different careers and different roles and seeing how they align with that checklist or not. So doing that work first can be really beneficial and helpful. So these are 3 different resources that we talk about a lot at our center and in career coaching that can be really helpful when you're exploring different possibilities. So I definitely recommend maybe writing these down if you have a pen and paper. Some of these maybe you've heard of, maybe some are new to you. And if you haven't heard of them or explored them, definitely writing down these websites will be helpful in your exploration phase. So one of them is Academic Invest, and you can find that at academicinvest.com. The second one is JobBank, so jobbank.gc.ca. And the third one is LinkedIn, and you can find that at students.linkedin.com. And I'm going to be talking about each of these 3 resources and how they work. So if we look at Academic Invest, it's a really well done Canadian website that really looks at what can I do with my degree. So for those of you in English, you may be wondering, like, what are some of those job titles? What can I do with this degree? What does it look like? What skills do I need? This is a really great website to explore that. I get that a lot in coaching where people just want to know kind of some titles, like what are these job titles? So if you go to Academic Invest, you can search out what can I do with an English degree, and it's going to lay out a lot of information there. So it's going to talk about, first of all, what you will actually learn if you take an English degree, the relatable skills to it, and then it's going to give you job profiles. So this is just a brief list. There's many more on that site with different things that you can do. And then if you click on these on the site, it's going to give you a description of that job and what it looks like in the education requirement. So some of those jobs you can do with an English degree, and some you might have to build on. So an English degree might be a really great foundation for something like, say, a lawyer, where you use a lot of communication skills. So it's just a really good place to get some different ideas and some examples to see what you're connecting with and what you might be interested in. Job Bank. So this one allows you to explore by a couple different categories. So if you go on the site, you're going to see that they've broken it up by job search, career planning, and trend analysis. And this is done by the Canadian government, but it's not all Canadian government jobs. So sometimes there's some confusion with that, but it's national. So it'll have it's a really great job bank in the sense that it compiles a lot of different jobs in one place. So it's kind of like a one-stop shop for everything career related. So for example, if you wanted to see, what kind of jobs are out there with an English degree, you can search by that. That's a specific field that you can search by, is by degree or occupation. And again, it'll just give you some different titles and different lists of things that you can do with that specific degree. It'll help you do career planning. So it has fields of study, it has different career quizzes, different job profiles, and skills checklists that are needed for those different positions, different fields of study. The career quizzes are really helpful as well if you're looking to see, what might be a good match for your degree or your different skill sets. And then trend analysis, this is really looking at statistics. So if you're somebody who's really interested in knowing, what percentage of English graduates find jobs after they graduate, what does that look like? It'll give you the stats for that. It'll give you a breakdown also of the different types of occupations and industries that people with that degree have taken it, and just the different percentages along with those different jobs and what that looks like. It'll also give a wage breakdown. So you can look at what people with an English degree typically would make in different jobs and give you kind of an average or a median, especially when you're just starting out as a new grad. So that can be helpful information or statistics to have, as well as the prospects. So the government has a lot of, analysis and statistics on the job markets and kind of what's trending. So what areas are doing a lot of hiring versus what maybe there isn't a lot of hiring. So it'll show you that as well. So that can be just helpful information to have. If we go to our third resource, this is with LinkedIn. Some of you maybe have heard of LinkedIn, maybe some of you have profiles. It can be a really great website for really doing some of that exploring and looking at, what are other people doing with this degree? What are other people doing with their English degree? What kind of jobs are out there? So if you don't have a LinkedIn profile, I definitely recommend building one so you can utilize all of the amazing things that are on there. And it can feel maybe a little overwhelming at first, especially if you're not used to that kind of social media or connecting and networking. That's definitely something I hear a lot from students, that it can feel kind of overwhelming and a little bit awkward when you're first connecting and reaching out to people. So just be aware if that's how you're feeling. That's perfectly normal. And we have lots of resources at our center and lots of support if you want some help in creating a LinkedIn profile and learning kind of how to professionally reach out to others. One of the functions on there that I really encourage people to use once they have their LinkedIn profile is using that LinkedIn USask Alumni Careers function. So basically what that is, if you haven't seen it or heard of it, once you have a profile on LinkedIn, you can look up any university, but if you were to look up our university, so the University of Saskatchewan, our university has its own page on LinkedIn or profile just like people would. And one of the functions on there is what we call the alumni function. So it's basically one of the menu options. If you click on that menu option, it's going to give you a new search field and a new search screen. And that's where you can really seek out and search what other people are doing with your degree. So for you, if you're in English, if you want kind of that tangible list or checklist of what people are doing, that's where you can find it. So if you type in English in that search category, you're going to see a bunch of different fields there. And that's where you're going to see, where people are living, where people are working. So what companies they're working for, what industry that they've gone to, according to that degree. So this is just an example, something that I pulled from there with some of the careers that our USask English alumni currently have right now. So these are people that you could connect with on there. So you can see there's commercial property manager from ICR Commercial Real Estate, community relations coordinator, Jubilee Residences Foundation, citizen service worker, so from Service Canada, Director of Developments and Communications from the YWCA Saskatoon, Marketing Strategist, Vendesta, Arts and Grants Consultant, City of Saskatoon, Brand Strategist, 7 Shifts, Workforce Manager, Banff Constructions Limited, Guest Experience and Events Coordinator from Remy Modern, and Mortgage Associate from the Mortgage Group Prairies. So you'll see there's a diverse different set of careers there. And this is just a very, very small list. If you were to go on that alumni site, you would see hundreds, if not thousands of different people that you could connect with and all the different roles that they're doing. So this can just be really helpful when you're wondering what is out there, what could I do, what does this look like, what is that working list of careers, what have people done before me. And that leads me into kind of what I was alluding to, the career informational interviewing. So when you're wondering about different careers and what that looks like, talking with people can be really helpful because sometimes we might have an idea of what a career is like. But in listening to people, it will either confirm that or maybe it will sound completely different than what we thought it was. So having these conversations with industry experts, asking them what are the challenges in this profession? What do you love about it? What is a typical day like? What have you learned being in the industry? What kind of advice would you give to someone who is thinking about a job in this area? And, who else could I talk to that would be helpful? So asking those kinds of questions, getting to know the industry better, hearing about different jobs, Again, you can go back to that personal checklist, seeing how much it aligns or maybe doesn't with what you want to do can just be really, really helpful when you're in that exploratory stage and really thinking about what's going to connect with you and what's going to be meaningful. And the LinkedIn alumni tool is really a great kind of safe place if you're looking to start that and just connect with people who have really taken, similar pathways. One recommendation we always talk about at the Student Employment and Career Center is embracing happenstance. So knowing that one step leads to another. I see this in coaching a lot where students come in, they're feeling very stressed, very overwhelmed. They're trying to figure out what that end goal or that specific job is that they're working towards, and not knowing what it is. And just know that that's okay. Like, it takes a while, it's a process. And as long as you are taking steps to learning about your options, connecting with people in industry, just taking small steps, you're going to get to that end goal. It's okay not to know exactly what you are working towards, as long as you are working towards something. That answer will come. A lot of times it just takes some time, and it's a process, and it's remembering to really be kind to yourself. It can feel overwhelming when people ask us, so what are you going to do when you graduate? What job are you working towards? That can be very stressful. And honestly, that's not the best approach. Even though people they feel that they may be helpful in asking those questions, a better question to ask is, what is your next step in this process? How can I be a support in this step? And just taking one step at a time. So just remembering, to be curious, pay attention to your interests, explore them, see where they might go. Having persistence. So knowing that some things may not work out along the way, and that's okay. That's normal. It's a part of the process, learning from those opportunities. Having optimism. So also realizing that things can get better. Maybe things are really tough and challenging right now, but they don't always have to look like that. So really looking at who are my supports, who can support me in this. Risk taking. Think about what's the worst that could happen. Maybe this is kind of scary, but working through some of that fear, that can be helpful as well. And flexibility, really keeping your options open, not limiting yourself, thinking big picture. Where are all the different places I could potentially work? What are some of these jobs? What have I not thought of? What could be interesting? So just making sure you're not limiting yourself is also very important in this process. So I'm going to bring you back to the career clarity scale now that you've seen just a couple different resources, and thinking about, where you're at. Are you still kind of at the same place as when you entered into this conversation? Or maybe have you thought of, one other resource or one other thing that you could do that could be helpful on your career journey? So just think about where you might place yourself on that and really what that next step might be. So it's not about the end goal. It's thinking about that one next step that's going to get you one number higher on that career clarity scale. And that brings us to some of the supports that we can help you with at the SECC. So we have careerlink.usask.ca. That's basically a place that you can go. You can search for jobs. We have a job board there. We also have volunteer opportunities. You can register for services and events. So that's all through careerlink.usask.ca. We offer things like resume talks. So if you need some support in developing your resume, your cover letter, or CV, we can certainly lend a hand with that. We have career coaching, which is one of the main things that I do there. So if you just want to talk about, where you're at, explore, have a conversation, talk about resources, figure out those next steps, we're certainly happy to support you in that process. We also have mock interviews. So if you're wanting to prepare for a specific interview or just want some general interview practice, we can help you with that. We offer career assessments. So kind of going back to the beginning of the presentation and figuring out who you are, those interests, personality, strengths, values. We have assessments for all of those things. So if you are wanting to learn more about yourself, those career assessments can be a great place to start. And then, of course, we have different events. Everything is virtual right now. So we have had already one big virtual career fair. Certainly, we'll probably have another in the fall. But we also have a lot of different career cafes and employer events where we bring people in, they talk about their company, they talk about kind of the hiring trends, what they're looking for, opportunities. It's a good way for you to start networking and making connections and seeing what the job market is like. So that's all I have for my presentation. I know that's very quick. It's a lot of information, but I hope it was helpful.
Roberta, that's so great. Nice. Pushed in so much there. I'm just wondering, everything that you've been talking about, it's all available online?
A lot of it is available through our website at the SCCC. Yeah, a lot of those resources are, some of them are a little bit more detailed here, so you won't find it necessarily in that much detail. But if anyone has specific questions, they can always contact me directly or book a career coaching session. And so we can go through a lot of that information kind of one-on-one.
And when is it better to be in touch with the SECC? Kind of when you're at the upper end of your career or right in first year?
That's a great question. We always recommend that there's steps you can be taking at any stage of your career journey. So there's certainly things you can be doing in first year that's a little bit different from second year, third year, or fourth year. So we recommend connecting early and getting kind of ahead of the game, and that'll be helpful versus maybe coming your last year and then trying to figure kind of so many things out at once.
And you're operating through the summer, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, we are open, yeah, throughout the summer as well.
That's great. Well, thank you so much. That's just a wonderful, wonderful presentation. And yeah, do feel free to get in touch with Roberta. Thank you, Roberta.
Thank you so much for having me. Take care, everyone.
Bye. Our final speaker today is the chair of our graduate programs in the English department, Professor Alison Murray. And Professor Murray is going to be talking about how graduate school operates, how you get from doing a 4-year, but especially an honors degree, and moving into the master's, and what a master's can offer you in terms of career progress. Alison, thanks so much for joining us today.
Hi there. Can you hear me? Okay. I'm going to share my screen here. Okay. So my name is Alison Murray, and I am a professor in the Department of English, and I'm here to talk about graduate studies in English. I'm the graduate chair right now, and I've supervised a number of graduate students, including Banjo, you can see on the far right here, who is featured on our webpage in the department, and he's working on 18th century studies. Specifically the letters of Ignatius Sancho in London. And I wanted to talk a little bit first just about what it is that these students do here and why it might be interesting or advantageous to you to do a graduate degree here or anywhere else for that matter. The first image is really meant to show you really a little bit about the graduate experience, having a cohort and a sense of community. Our graduate students here are very, very supportive of one another and do a lot of sharing and getting together and helping one another out. And that is really something that's a positive part of our program because it's quite a small one compared to, for example, University of Toronto or something like that, which have much larger programs. So I thought I would just give you a very, very quick tour of our website. You may or may not have looked at it, but if you click on grad studies on our department website, you will get a sense of what it is that we offer. What might you be interested in? Well, we have several programs. One is the MA project program, one is the MA thesis program, one is a PhD program that would follow a thesis, and one is the MFA in writing. We list areas of concentration on our webpage, as you'll see here: Indigenous literature, digital studies, modernist studies, Canadian literature, and cultural studies. But we do supervise in many other areas. So when you check out our graduate supervisors page, you'll be able to see the kinds of research that they're doing and get a sense of whether it would fit with yours. So what about these programs? What are they? The one that's most popular for students coming out of their honors is an MA with a project. And basically, this is a research paper that you do that is 25 to 30 pages, in addition to taking 18 credit units. And that must include 801, which is I'll show you that in just a minute. The next one here is the MA with thesis. So the MA with the project usually takes 1 year. It's very intense, and most students complete it in a year. The other one is the MA with a thesis, and this is only 15 credit units, but you write a thesis, which is 80 to 100 pages, and this can take usually 2 to 4 years. Shouldn't take 4 years, but sometimes it does. So when you do a thesis, you're basically choosing your topic. You're getting you write a proposal, you get it approved, and you write this longer work. With the project, you can build that out of either a research project that you've been working on with a supervisor, or out of a course that you take in the graduate program. So you take one of the papers that you wrote for the course and turn it into a research paper. That just means doing it a little bit more intensive research and polishing and so on. Very quickly, if you are interested, come and have a look at our proposed seminars for 2021 to 22, and what we've offered, in fact, last year as well. Just as a very quick, here we go. You can see that we don't have a huge number of courses for you to choose from, but we have a number of courses in a variety of different areas. The courses are like an honors seminar in structure, except that they're a little bit more research intensive, and so that you would be working on developing your research skills when you take these. These classes are really great for, oh, that's me fussing around, not figuring out what was going on when I was recording. I'll just stop that right now. The advantage of taking these courses is that you can hone and develop your research skills. That's great for grant writing. That's great for administrative jobs. Some graduates go on and get into law. As I heard the previous speaker saying, I know one who did a PhD and he's now in law and doing very well. And these skills are all very well honed by doing an MA or going on and doing a PhD as well. So that's a really, really quick tour. I know that we don't have a lot of time, but if you have any questions at all, I think we might have a couple minutes. You could ask me now, or you could also just email me. I'm at alisonmurie@usask.ca.
Well, thanks so much, Allison. What would you say is the greatest benefit for students of getting a master's? I mean, on the one hand, you're honing skills. Are those skills would you say that they are in demand, or is it just kind of a redundant degree in a sense that if you've done the honors degree, you've kind of done it? What is it that a master's degree can really add to your opportunities, to the opportunities that you end up having?
It's an opportunity to perfect what you have done in a few seminars in your honors degree. And so you learn how to give public speeches and to discuss and have a discourse about questions. You have a lot of independence in terms of how you frame your question and how you defend, how you research, and so on. We also have opportunities for graduate students to teach. So you learn how to become a teacher of English. We have opportunities for graduate students to be hired to do research projects or to work on certain aspects of research projects. So there's lots of opportunities in that way that really, I think, build upon and develop the skills that you're already learning right now. You get a chance to work closely with a supervisor, which you don't necessarily in the honors program, and so you get lots of in depth. I would say it deepens your knowledge of the profession of English literature or studying English literature or cultural studies or digital humanities, which you probably may not have had a chance to pursue. We have experts in digital humanities who actually are doing lots of interesting research in that area. And now I'm promoting what I do and know best, but there are other areas where, again, there's you deepen your understanding or you learn something brand new that you might not have had the opportunity to pursue in your undergraduate degree.
And just with the research assistantship, particularly when it comes to digital humanities, where people are learning how to code and learning how to kind of do public interfaces, I'm thinking about the Canterbury Tales project that's all online. You're also expanding your scope in ways that you just can't do when it's, I guess, an undergraduate course. We've got a question from Chelsea. Allison, what might you recommend for a student interested in continuing to grad school but needing to take a break after undergrad? Anything we can be doing to continue learning and keep us a good candidate for a graduate program? Because a break is crucial, especially after doing online stuff like this for a while.
You know what I would say is keep reading, follow your passions, decide what you love. Well, I mean, in a narrow context of English literature, cultural studies, and digital humanities. Decide what you think you really want to do and just read and go sit on a beach somewhere and just relax for a while, because that's also good. So I think you could take a break and come back in a year and step right in. If you love this discipline, you'll step right in and do very well.
I'm thinking about something that Jess Clausen Wright was saying, where sometimes, we're constantly so busy, we've got to go goal, goal, goal. And we forget that an English degree, any degree, is very much about thinking. It's meditating and reflecting. Sometimes we don't always have the time for that. True. Corey has a question. Is there a language requirement for the MA project program, or is that just for the thesis program?
That is just for the thesis program. Which makes it kind of tempting, but if you're planning to go on and do a PhD, you might be playing catch up later.
Can you take a course for the language requirement through the university while you're doing your degree?
Now I have been away from being a grad chair for 3 years, I think. So we used to have a French course that students could take, and I don't know the answer to that question at this moment, but I think that is an option, and it's a reading course, and basically it's basically built for English students and history students to be able to get this requirement taken care of without a huge amount of investment in time, like actually taking an undergraduate series of courses would take. I can check that.
There is a way around that. Caitlin has a question. For the graduate program, Is there a grade requirement in order to enter? What kind of grade threshold do you have to meet for the graduate program?
Well, there is a minimum grade threshold, and for MA students, I'm just going to make sure that I don't say the wrong thing. The minimum that we say is 70% undergraduate average of at least 70% or its equivalent, with at least 75% in English. So that's the minimum. In practice, what we tend to, just because of the cohorts that is applying, those with an average, with a minimum of 75% overall and 80% in English would be considered first in the list when we're kind of ranking them. All that information is on the website. If you click on applications, and you'll be able to read applications and registration. All the requirements are there if you didn't get any of that.
Great questions. Thank you, Corey, Chelsea, and Caitlin. I was just thinking earlier about the scholarships and awards that are available to honors students, to people who've taken English courses. Those are on the undergraduate website under the undergraduates tab, scholarships and awards. We've got that April 15th deadline coming up. I'm wondering about funding. When you apply to the graduate program, particularly for, say, an MA project degree, are you considered for funding?
You are automatically considered for funding. It all depends year by year on the cohort of students that we have applying, as well as the cohort of students that we have committed funds to, and what is available in our budget, of course. But everybody's automatically considered. We encourage students to apply for a SSHRC Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council grant, which is a Canadian government grant. If they're doing a thesis, you have to do a thesis, not a project, to be able to apply. So we would encourage you to apply in your first year for that. The advantage of doing that, if you have a really, really good GPA and interesting project, you would get lots of help from your supervisor, of course. And if you manage to get that kind of a grant, it's a really, really great thing to put on your CV if you want to go on and do a PhD, because you sort of build on that CV. It's not the be all and end all for building your CV, but it's something that we encourage everybody who is doing an MA thesis to do. I should say encouraged by requiring them to do it. And there are also other kinds of scholarships. If you have a very high average and some publications, like have you published even creative writing? Have you published an article somewhere, an essay somewhere? Have you presented papers somewhere? For example, at the undergraduate colloquium. If you have a very high average, we would encourage you to apply for a Dean's Scholarship. We provide graduate teaching fellowships to as many students as we can. We sometimes, depending on whether your research meshes with a professor who has funding to do so, we can provide scholarships in the form of a research assistant. We also have some opportunities for students to work at an hourly rate or part-time as research assistants. There are also a few awards. They're of a few, maybe 1,000 or so here and there. They're not really, really large awards, but you should check out on our graduate webpage there, if you're interested in finding out more about that. There is a page that's called Funding, and just click on that and read through that.
We've got two more questions. One is about the MFA program, which is for creative writers, and it's one of the most prominent programs in Canada now. Jenna's asking, how long does the MFA program usually take students to complete? Would that be a 2-year program where coursework in the first year and then completing your creative project in the second?
I believe it's a 2-year program. Let me just double check. Yeah, it's a 2-year program. So you defend your thesis at the end of August of your second year or the beginning of September after the end of the second year. It's a full-time program, and so you have to take some courses in the first year. And then in the second year, you will be, there's a writing workshop and a capstone workshop. And so you are then you're paired up with a mentor when you do your project. Could be it could be poetry, it could be short stories, it could be sometimes there's drama as well. You're paired up with a mentor who is a writer, usually based in Saskatchewan, and they help you through with writing your project.
And Caitlin has a question. Which year is it best to register into the undergraduate honors program? Should you wait until you're a more experienced student? That's not an odd question at all. For the undergraduate honors program, you need a certain threshold of credit units. So usually it's at the end of your second year. It's by the 31st of May that application would be due at the UGSO, the Undergraduate Student Office. If you'd like to get in touch with me, I can send you that form though, Caitlin. And I look forward to being in touch about you entering the honors program. For the entering the honors program, I think it's an overall average of 70%, but also an average in your English courses of 70%. And it's well worth joining, certainly because it opens you up to not just scholarships, but also a lot of 400 level seminars, which is where you can get into the deep dive, start to get into that deep dive that Professor Muri was talking about. I'm mindful of the time. It's after 5 o'clock and we've gone a little bit over, but it's been such a great session. Thank you so much, Allison. You've given us so much more information. For asking further questions of Allison Muri about the MA and the PhD programs, please do send to her allison.muri@usask.ca. For follow-up information about the MFA program, you can also get in touch with Jeanette Lines, and her contact information, jeanette.lines@usask.ca, is also available on our faculty page on the Department of English website. To get in touch with me, you can, I'll just type my email address in the chat function. It's ann.martin@usask.ca. And please know we'll be looking towards advising sessions in April, and that you're welcome to sign up for some virtual sessions with me. And other faculty members would be happy to answer your questions. Thank you so much. Thank you to our presenters. Thank you for coming to the session. What a great session it's been. Thank you, Jess, Kathleen, Angelica, Roberta, and Allison. Thank you especially to Diana Tegenkamp, the office coordinator for the Department of English, for setting this up, for making it go so smoothly. What great questions were offered to us. Again, if you want to follow up, please do fire off some emails. And as you leave, feel free to leave in the chat what you found most useful about today's session, what you liked about today's session. And we look forward to seeing you at future events, including perhaps the virtual awards ceremony that's coming up in the beginning of April. We'll have more information about that. For now, thanks so much and have a good evening. We'll talk again soon.